I noticed that I've been out of high school for almost 9 years the other day, and in a little over a year, I will be at my 10-year high school reunion. A bout of depression set in when I realized how far I have fallen over the last decade. My life has not turned out at all like I dreamt as a fresh-faced high school grad. For reference, I am homeless and poor. I work in a job that I hate, that makes my college degree completely useless, that doesn't pay enough, although it seems like it should on paper. I am engaged to my girlfriend of 7 years, who is losing her mind to what I strongly suspect is paranoid schizophrenia. My once decent relationship with my family is now bitter. I blamed the world at first, of course. Then, as I began to reflect on my life and take responsibility for my choices, I realized that, for my entire life, I have been a total piece of shit, and that my life is beginning to sound like the backstory of a serial killer, serial R-wordist, terrorist, or mass murderer. Beware. This confession has triggers for anybody who has been hurt or abused by anyone. I am not a good person at all. For starters, I am a raging intimate addict and deviant who has and is still committing several criminal intimate acts. And when I say intimate, you know what I mean. Freaky stuff, with intimacy. But let's continue. I became addicted to adult videos at a young age. My mother, my primary caretaker, passed away when I was young, after which I went to live with my paternal grandmother. One of my adult cousins, who likely has mental issues, lived there as well. I built a relationship with him around a love of comic books, which he collected. At some point, I noticed that he had a massive collection of adult magazines as well, and an addiction was born. I would break into his locked room and steal several adult magazines at a time while he was away. It didn't help that I grew up in the age of the internet boom, and by 10 years old, I had probably viewed more adult videos than my cousin had in his entire life. I was a latchkey kid, and from the time I got home from school until when my grandmother returned from work, it was all adult videos all the time. Summer vacation meant short stints of being a normal child to long, unhealthy sessions of adult media consumption, which quickly went from standard hardcore intimacy to stuff like, how am I going to say this? Poop, pee, and animal love. Animal love between humans and animals. Yeah, disgusting. But let's continue. All years before I could even physically jerk it, this culminated in my first actual crime. I stole my grandmother's credit card to buy a subscription to a website, adult website. I have never admitted this to anyone. From here, things got worse, albeit slowly, and it fits. I am the second oldest male of my generation in my family. I used this position to S-word violate my cousins. My first ever intimate act with another person was performing on my younger cousin. I was young and he was even younger. I also tried to R-word him. I am not, nor did I even consider the idea of being gay. I just wanted to do something and emulate what the adult movies did. It only happened one time and we never spoke of it again. I saw him years later, and he seemed to be well adjusted. Perhaps it was just me hoping against hope that he had forgotten. And the next paragraph is honestly just so graphic I cannot read it. But basically, he's caught staring at his younger cousin, and his younger cousin is a toddler at the time, and he's like a teenager at this time, so disgusting. But let's skip past that. And he says, beyond that, every single dog we've ever owned since I moved in with my grandmother has been violated by me in some way or another. Males, females, doesn't matter. Sometimes it wasn't even my dog. One time I was alone with my buddy's dog. She'd always been kind of a bitch, no pun intended, and sometimes it growled a little when I would pet her. This time I was rubbing her belly and I'm not even going to read that, but he violated the dog. Man, this is probably the worst confession I've ever read, but let's continue. This behavior continues to this day. In college, I discovered webcams through sites like blank, I'm not going to read it, and began to show off with strangers on the internet, despite having been committed to my current, innocent, kind-hearted girlfriend for years. Yes, the one developing mental issues. I told you I'm an awful person. I still do it. I'm planning on doing it later tonight because I'm alone for once. No, she does not know, or at least I'm doing my best to hide the fact. I've developed sort of interests, exhibitionist interests, and am getting very close to being that guy wearing nothing but a trench coat. I have whipped my junk out on public transportation, in traffic, on small errands. I have jerked it in public, in libraries, in gyms, in schools, you name it. Just this week, my habit has become predatory. I have started to prey on girls younger than 18. At this very moment, sits on my screen an image of a supposedly, oh my God, Jesus. And that was just my genuine reaction to reading what's next. But basically he says on his screen right there, he has illegal content involving minors. Jesus Christ, man, this is bad. Let's continue. Last year, I started to secretly frequent adult clubs, every visit getting more and more raunchy and expensive. I've tried to get with the girls that do the dances, and if a girl were to offer me a low enough price, and prices have been offered, I doubt I would strongly hesitate to have intimacy with her there and then. I haven't yet. I'm more than a little afraid that I'll eventually work my way up to trying to straight up R-word, a adult dancer. Just another item to the long, sorted list of things that I've resolved to never ever tell my sweet, trusting, fragile girlfriend. And while I have convinced myself that I truly love my girlfriend, I continue to think of how I never wanted to be with her in the first place. With her steadily deteriorating mental state, these thoughts of disappointment become more frequent instead of normal thoughts of concern for a loved one suffering. For reference, I believe that I settled for her. Back when we started dating in college, she is my first and only actual romantic and intimate partner. I always wanted to fall in love growing up, but I was hopelessly inept around women. Socially awkward, self-conscious, and immature. I always felt like I fell short with the opposite gender. I was also your standard issue nice guy, putting women up on a pedestal, trying to manipulate women with my niceness, endlessly lamenting being put into the friend zone. I probably had more than a few creepy stalker moments. By the time I made it to college, I was wallowing in depression and feeling as if I was going to be celibate for the rest of my life. My future girlfriend and I ran into each other on the first day of her freshman year. We had graduated from the same high school and she had a crush on me then. I rejected her the first time because I was not attracted to her. But by college, I was so depressed and desperate that I just rolled over and accepted it. Eventually, I came to love her and think of her as my life partner, but I still regret my decision, as much of how my life has turned out stems from that moment. But I'm too weak and I'm in too deep to break it off. We have been together 7 years and are supposed to get married. Even though I am strongly against it in our current situation, I have never had the backbone to stand up for myself, to be assertive, to do the right thing, even if it's hard. It's led in some way or another to a lot of my current life problems. I have no integrity and no sense of self. I'd very much rather fall for everything than stand for anything. Have my entire life, which leads to the last of my outright evil behaviors. Animal abuse. I roll over for everyone and try to be the people pleaser, but that doesn't mean my resent goes away. I just direct it towards something that cannot fight back and cannot tell me to stop. There was a stray cat that I played with as a child. One day I decided to tie its tail around a railing. It eventually got free and fled from me, stopping to give me the most heartbroken look I've ever seen. I suppressed the pang of guilt and stared back wickedly, grinning as I began to throw rocks at it. I never saw the cat again. I have no idea why I did it. My younger cousins used to have 2 pet hamsters, and I made their lives a living hell with a carnival of torture, nearly drowning them repeatedly, scorching their fur, locking them in a single hamster ball and throwing it down the stairs or along a long hallway like a bowling ball, pitching them like baseballs into couch cushions, flicking them hard across the face and belly with my fingers. I liked to hear them squeak in pain and fear. It was the only intense session where I broke one's leg that I snapped out of it and realized why I'd been doing it, because it made me feel powerful. Both hamsters died shortly after the leg breaking incident. I've never told these things to anyone. That's the insidious part about it. I've always been able to maintain that normal veneer so well that even I never felt that I was anything less than a regular, decent person. I have people that love me, people that think I'm a good person with a good heart, but they are wrong. I am evil, literally evil. And it's only a matter of time until I do something seriously terrible and take so many innocent lives down with me. So what do I do, Reddit? I turned 27 this year, and instead of being met with happiness, I was met with thoughts of S-word. Serious thoughts. Can I redeem myself? I am beginning to think not. I am so messed up. Too effed up. I started this post to get this all off my chest and feel better, but now I'm sitting here, unclothed, starting to cry, singing one line from Les Miserables over and over. I had a dream my life would be so different from this hell I'm living in. Help. And Jesus. That is frankly one of the most disturbing confessions I have ever read. Not only just the contents of it, but how real this feels. Some of these confessions I read are, they feel like they're fake. They're put on as engagement bait of some sort. But this confession that I just read was posted 12 years ago. 12 years ago with 12 upvotes and 11 comments. So that almost leads me to believe that this is completely real. That we just heard the confession from a predator, from an animal abuser, from someone that is truly sick, twisted, and demented, and deserves to go to prison for his crimes. This is by far the most sickening confession I have ever read, and I'm honestly sorry I had to put you guys through this. But, man, this is scary. It is terrifying how people like this exist among us, and we have no idea who they are. I mean, like this guy said, he could be a normal guy, but he goes home and abuses animals, looks at illegal content involving minors, and says he may do something terrible and take so many innocent lives down with him. Truly sick. And let's get into some of the top comments. Someone says, seek professional help, please. And another comment says, I hope you are dead. I almost killed someone at their request. Disclaimer, this story is disgusting. I'm disgusting. A few years ago, I used to frequent Cute Dead Guys. That place is a real horror show of depravity. There was a personal ads section where many people often express their desires to kill or be killed. During this time of my life, I was very mentally ill. I was struggling with intense homicidal ideation and many dark thoughts. Thus, why I was on the website to begin with. Anyways, one particular personal ad stood out to me. An older man was asking to be killed for real. He has a interest for it. He wanted to be killed, then cannibalized. He lived only a few hours' drive from me. I, having intense homicidal ideation at the time, jumped at an opportunity to kill. having found a willing victim in my vicinity. I felt like I had hit the jackpot. We talked online for a while, and my would-be victim assured me that he was dead serious about wanting to be killed. We met up, and together we bought cough syrup and alcohol to numb the pain he would feel. We rented a hotel room, then made our preparations. When he handed me the kitchen knife and bared his throat to me, reality came crashing down on my head. I was about to kill a man. I was about to become the next Armin Meiwes, which is a person that was arrested for doing a similar thing. I covered it in a dark web video once, but let's continue. I immediately became ill and lightheaded. I called it off. We went our separate ways and never spoke again. Sometimes I wonder if he found somebody to kill him or if he's still looking. This is a sick story, but I just had to get it off my chest. In case you are wondering, I'm much more stable these days. And now let's get into some of the top comments. Someone says, wow, you were lucky you saw clearly at the end. You very nearly crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. I'm happy that you're feeling more stable these days though. I killed my own pet when I was tripping on acid. It was my third time ever taking acid. The first time was awesome. The second, not so much. But it had been a few months and I got a few trips cheap, so why not? My parents bought me a blue-tongued skink for my 16th birthday, and I was 19 at the time. The skink, which I named Blue, so original, is quite a low-maintenance pet and an overall beautiful creature. I loved taking him out, letting him explore new surroundings, and sometimes hand-feeding him. I loved this guy so much I would handle him every day, and sometimes just watched him and how he moved around. He was such an interesting and unique pet. Anyway, it was a Saturday afternoon and my parents had gone away for the weekend. I'm an only child, so I had the place to myself. I dropped the acid 5 minutes after they left in the morning. Naturally, a few hours had passed and I was tripping kinda hard. I was playing some video games to ease myself into it, but now it was becoming too difficult to play. I felt uneasy, wasting my trip playing video games. So I grabbed a drink, put on some electronic music, and went to sit outside in the sun. Lost in my own thoughts, there was a palpable feeling of loneliness. I started pacing around only for my thoughts to increase in intensity. I went back into my room to watch a movie or something. As I walked into my bedroom, I glanced down at the side table to see if Blue was up and about. He was. Not only that, but he was propped up on his back legs, clawing at the wall. Common behavior. I took this as a sign that the universe wanted me to take him out. Blue was very content with being held. He didn't wiggle around unless you held him incorrectly. I took him outside and I was sitting where I was before with him in my lap, letting him soak up some good old natural vitamin D. I started stroking his head slowly like I usually do. He enjoys head pats. I guess it's hard to know exactly what they like, but his eyes closed when I did it, which seemed to indicate he liked it. Every time I stroked down his scaly head, I felt the contours so vividly. I could almost feel his energy or life force or something being released as my fingers went down his body. It's like I could see something rippling away, like when you drop a stone in a lake. My attention was absorbed by this. It's hard to describe, but it's like I was in a trance-like state. It's like the feeling you get when you're so intimately connected with another living being or certain activity. I pushed a harder with every stroke and the ripples intensified and continued outwards. God, this is so hard to write. The unnecessary suffering I caused to an innocent animal, especially my own whom I loved. Blue was showing signs of discomfort, but I was too distracted with the ripples. Then it got to the point where I was pushing too hard. He couldn't get away because my grip under his belly was tightening. His little feet were pushing against my thighs, and he was squirming and twisting his body trying to get out of my grip. I don't know how long I held him there. I had lost perception of time, which is really easy to do while tripping. I kept gripping and pushing down on his skull and body. I can only imagine all the pain that I was causing him. My phone rang and snapped me away from my temporary hypnosis. It was my mother, and I started to panic that they had to turn around or something. I don't remember dropping Blue because I was panicking, but I must have as I went inside to answer the call. She was just informing me of what food I could eat from the freezer. Because I had semi-freaked out over that phone call, I completely forgotten that I was outside. The unknown amount of time I spent hurting that poor animal was just removed from my brain. I went inside to watch a movie. It wasn't until a few hours later when Blue's terrarium caught my eye did my cruel actions come flooding back to me. I ran outside with a sick feeling in my stomach. I almost threw up when I saw him. And just a trigger warning, the next whole paragraph is honestly really gross and sickening, so just trigger warning for everyone watching and listening, but he says, I almost threw up when I saw him. Right in front of my seat in the grass lay Blue's mangled body, lifeless. I had a wave of anger, disappointment, and overall poignancy came over me. I can't believe what I had done. I bent down to pick him up, and he was certainly dead. I don't know what killed him, whether I broke his back while gripping him, or maybe when I threw him down. Internal injuries? I don't know. I wasn't keen to investigate and make myself feel worse. I buried him in the backyard and gave some bullshit answer to my parents when they came back about accidentally feeding him the wrong food. They didn't know what food was and wasn't appropriate for him. My parents offered to buy me another one, but I couldn't accept it. Not after what had just happened. Not after what I had done to Blue. I don't deserve it. I still have dreams about this shit. Usually more exaggerated and violent ones. Dreams where I crush his skull with my hands and I wake up feeling awful all over again. I'm a terrible person for doing this, and I probably deserve those sleepless nights. I ended an innocent, beloved animal's only existence on this earth, and there's nothing I can do to bring him back. I'm sorry, Blue. H is the only thing I will ever love. And by H, I mean H the drug. I can't say it, but you get what I'm saying, and let's get into it. I've been hooked on opiates for 5 years, using H for 4 glorious years of those 5. Right now, I'm in school pursuing my bachelor's degree, and I'm on methadone maintenance, abstinent from my one true love and hating every second of it. I'm simply going through the motions to keep up appearances and to ease my poor, sweet family's concern. If I didn't feel so terrible for putting my ultra supportive parents through hell, seriously, what did they do to deserve me? And squandering all of my talent and potential, I would have given up and taken to the streets of the Tenderloin the second I learned what it felt like to have liquid bliss flood through my veins. In many respects, I'm on my way to doing just that. I pretend to care about other shit, school, friends, exercise, riding, reading, but the truth is, all of that, all of those things for which I once had deep passion, have now become trivial and hollow to me. H gifted me 4 straight years of peace. During that time, I never put the needle down, and it never even got a little bit stale. If I didn't need to maintain this facade, I wouldn't even bother with the pretense that I'm through with it. As it stands, I refer to H as poisonous and a waste, lol. I even attended NA meetings, which can be quite amusing when I'm blanketed in, and admittedly weak, buzzing. listening to yet another housewife cry about how her 10 pill a day habit had destroyed her life. I spout the party line with the best of them because I know my obsession with this drug and my resistance to treatment is sick and insane. It defies all logic. To admit face to face to a single soul that after all the destruction this habit has wreaked upon my life, I still desperately yearn for it as one would yearn for a lost lover. Well, that would reveal a depth to my lunacy to which I'm wholly unprepared to confess. I dream about it. I miss it. I'm even frequently S-word simply because my life can't revolve around it in the way I want it to. I no longer give a flying F about getting my degree, though I'm currently maintaining a 3.9 GPA. Go figure. I no longer care about interpersonal relationships, romantic or otherwise, aside from what small vestiges of love I still harbor for my parents. The ideas of marriage, having children, building a career, none of it appeals to me to any level. My life's dream now revolve around my recurring fantasies of robbing a pharmacy or getting in good with a crooked doctor who's loose with the script pad, or my personal favorite, living completely alone on a deserted island with an unlimited supply of dope in syringes, shooting up all day as I watch the waves crash against the beach. That is literally what I think about each night before I fall asleep. That's my idea of heaven. I am 23 years old and I have lost all passion for everything unrelated to opiates. I do not regret it because I'm no longer capable of feeling remorse, though I am aware on a logical level of the pointlessness and futility of such a life. The problem is, no other path seems to offer a more meaningful alternative. While my parents are alive, I will do my best to appear functional and happy, but once they leave me, I will set my plan for a slow S-word into motion. I will take a Greyhound to San Fran, start hooking in the Tenderloin, and hopefully die sooner rather than later, doing the only thing I really love on this earth: shooting dope. Thanks for reading, Reddit. Shit's bleak, I know. And the top comment on this post says, "This is one of the scarier things I have ever read." And the OP responds and says, "Damn dude, I know. I used to be so full of life and love. I stole and jerked it into my coworker's underwear. I, 32 male, am married but in a dead bedroom situation. I work at a decently large company and have a very attractive coworker in an office just down the hall with me. We flirt a lot and are quite comfortable and close with each other, but have never done anything that could be thought of as physical cheating. Last year, she had an affair with a guy and she felt comfortable enough with me to share this fact. I've had my share of fantasies where she and I hook up as well, so knowing that she cheated on her husband already made it hotter for me. I was in her office while she was out of office for a vacation, trying to locate a file that she told me she had on her drawer if I needed to double check something on it. Well, while searching for it, I stumbled across a shoebox in her drawer. Inside the box was a pair of underwear, lingerie, and a thumb drive. I'm not a good person, so I snooped and checked out the thumb drive too. Turns out, the underwear and lingerie were what she was wearing the night she cheated on her husband, and also on the thumb drive were naughty photos. This got me aroused. I was so wrapped up in that, I shut my office door, turned out the lights, and crawled under my desk to jerk it into her underwear. I then put the underwear back in the box along with the thumb drive, not before making a copy of the photos for myself, and put it all back in the drawer where I found it. I'm not a good person, but if my wife would just have intimacy with me, maybe I wouldn't have these issues. And now let's get into some of the top comments. Someone says, dude, what the hell? This has nothing to do with your wife not having intimacy with you. You are just a creep. And someone else says, you are a terrible person for cheating on your wife like this. This certainly is unacceptable behavior in a marriage or a workplace. If you want your wife to have intimacy with you, text her throughout the workday. Maybe while you're fantasizing about other women, text your wife what you want to do in the bedroom. You might find her more receptive after a day of getting messages. And someone else says, well, all of the DNA evidence is there. I drove while tripping on acid and got into a car accident. In 2018, I was with a few of my good friends smoking some weed in one of their backyards. We decided to see a movie because we were bored and picked The Incredibles 2. We got the bright idea to go see the movie on acid, so we dropped our tabs on the 10-minute drive to the theater and went inside. As the movie went on, we all started to feel the effects. It was honestly the perfect film to watch on acid with all of the bright colors and complex animations. We were having a great time, high out of our minds. The movie ended, and when we walked back into the lobby, we were caught off guard. All the bright lights and people talking to us bugging us out, so we sped walk back to the car. We got to the car, and were sitting there for maybe 20 minutes to sober up before we left. But I hadn't thought this beforehand. The peak of an acid trip is usually 3 to 4 hours in, and you're back to normal after 8+ hours have passed. By this time, it had only been 4 hours. We noticed that the parking lot was emptying out, and a security vehicle had passed by us twice already. We got kind of paranoid and mutually decided that we should leave. I didn't know how I would drive, but I was confident enough to just do it. I left the parking lot and got on the road towards home. I was honestly surprised at how well I was driving, but didn't want to make it seem like I had any doubts, so I didn't say anything. After about 10 minutes, we were close to home, but hit a really bad traffic jam. All 3 lanes were merging into the one left lane because of late night construction. I was halfway into the left lane, but the car in front stopped, so I was kind of diagonal between the 2 lanes. We were sitting there completely still for a good 10 seconds before I see a BMW accelerating towards my car. The guy crashed into my driver's side door, and we were all in shock. He reversed, and I got out of the car. When I was speaking to him, I could smell the booze on his breath. I told him I knew he was drunk and took his wallet from him. I got all of his info and was going to take his cash, but all he had was singles. I told him I'd call the cops if he didn't give me money to fix my car. He agreed and followed me down the one open lane. I should have just called the cops, but my friends and I were all high, so I thought it was a bad idea. Well, this drunk asshole decided to drive through the construction zone at like 60 miles an hour and evade me. I had all of this information, so I went to his house with my friends, and his landlord answered. He was pretty huge and told us to get off his property, so we did. Eventually, the drunk guy's friend met up with me and gave me some cash and begged us not to call the cops. So yeah, I didn't hurt anyone, but driving under the influence is a horrible thing to do, and that night definitely taught me a lot. Also, next time a drunk driver hits me, I'm just gonna call the cops because that guy could have killed an innocent construction worker, and it could have been prevented if I just called 911. Feel free to call 18-year-old me any names you'd like. I was definitely an idiot that night. I'm just glad my friends and I were okay. And now let's get into some of the top comments. Someone says, dude, you could have killed an innocent construction worker. And the OP replies and says, that's true. We were both not meant to be driving that night. but I stressed that point about the construction worker because he literally drove through the cones and sped through the blocked off part of the highway where guys were working on the road. I wasn't an A1 driver that night, but I knew to at least stay on the open part of the highway, lol. But yeah, definitely the last time I'm driving like that. I've been cheating on my husband so long that I don't even know if our child is his or not. My husband and the man I'm sleeping with both look kind of similar. White, dark hair, light eyes, my type. My husband and I have been married since 2008, and I've been sleeping with another man in 2007. Dates overlapped and blended in together. I don't know when I was with who. I'm thankful our son came out the way he did. I guess I'm more thankful I've been sleeping with a man with similar physical traits to my husband. No one knows except my best friend, and she has secrets too, so I know she'll never tell. I'm too scared to do a DNA test because I truly don't want to know the truth. Our happy little family is fine the way it is. We barely fight, are good financially, and have a lovely home. I don't want to ruin anything by having that test done, but I do regret overlapping dates and sleeping with my husband and boyfriend way too close together. And now let's get into some of the top comments. Someone says, "Wow, there are no words. You've taken away so many years from this man's life that he could have been in a serious relationship. If you were already cheating on him before you were married, you never should have gotten married. So much for your vows to him. Anyways, take a DNA test. If it's his, stay with him, but you should leave him anyways for the years of cheating. If it's not his, leave him." Another person says, "Conflicted? You're not conflicted. You'd have to actually have something resembling morals in order to be conflicted. How could you possibly give a shit about your kid's paternity when you don't give a shit about the kid's father?" And another user says, "Let your husband decide if he wants a paternity test after you tell him. Or if you do one without him knowing and the child isn't his, I'm sure you won't lose any sleep keeping the secret. But in seriousness, this isn't about you or your husband or the other guy. This is something you need to do for your child." And another user says, "It saddens me there is scum like you in the world. Lie to your husband, your child, and to yourself. I hope there is a special place in hell for people like you. If I was your kid growing up and finding out, and they will, I would hate you for life." I turned a girl into a speed freak and eventually gave her drugs for intimacy. I am a former drug dealer. I haven't sold any drugs in a long time and don't plan on doing it again because I have a good job and selling drugs can be very stressful. I mainly sold weed, but occasionally sold hallucinogens like LSD and mushrooms when I could find them. There's some rare mofos where I'm from, and also pills like Adderall. I was slowing down my dealing. I didn't realize it at the time, but the gradually decreasing number of sales I had been engaging in would eventually lead to no sales at all. My customer base had been slowly disappearing because I was lazy and pretty unreliable, and I finally quit dealing when my customer base was pretty much nothing. It's way easier to quit selling drugs when you're barely making profit. Back in the day, quitting was unfathomable because of how many Benjis found their way to my pocket. Before I decided to quit, I was trying to find myself more customers, and I asked a few girls I knew if they'd heard of Adderall. They had all smoked weed and drank alcohol before, but none of them had tried speeding. I easily convinced them to try it, and they all bought and tried one. None of them asked to buy another except for one girl. We can call her Sarah, not a real name. Sarah, over the next few weeks, gradually bought more and more pills off of me, starting with 3 pills a week, all the way up to 2 a day. For a month or two, she was buying 2 pills off of me every day. She lived 3 blocks away, and we both had cars anyways, so meeting was never a problem. The day it happened, I was at her house. I had just gotten a new bottle of pills, and she was really excited to buy some because it was extended release. The pills release into your body initially when you take it, and again 4 hours later, instead of instant. We'd always had a flirty female customer and male drug dealer type of relationship. Any male drug dealers know what I'm talking about. She would always touch my arm. When she'd hug me, her chest would always end up pressed against my chest so I could see her cleavage. She'd always wear the most revealing clothes around me. She'd always smile at me and say, "Hi, it's just a ride," emphasizing my name in a intimate way, etc. Keep in mind that even though she was acting as if she had interest in me, it was completely because of the drugs. I'd sometimes give her an extra pill or two, and she'd be really flirty / all over me the next day. As a drug dealer, I felt fake a lot of the time. I felt like I was constantly having to pretend to like people I didn't like to make sales. No one wants to buy off of an asshole. And even though I knew she was being fake to me, it felt good to pretend like someone actually cared about me / was into me. So we're in her house. She can't find her wallet. She tried to pull this on me before. Her money is missing, but if I give her the pill, she'll take some and it will help her find it. Bullshit. I refused the first time and I was going to again. She says we should go look in her car, and she takes my hand and leads me outside. She hadn't held my hand before, so I was kind of weirded out, but I walked with her out to the car. I was behind her. I remember watching her ass as we walked down the front porch steps to her car. She had been a bit of a too thick for my taste before she started the Adderall, but it made her lose a few pounds, and I was noticing how she was really attractive now. She was a bit thick. She wasn't bone thin, but certainly not overweight. And because of that, she had a really, really nice body. That's just how I'm going to say it, but he gets into it. And then he says, I know, I'm a disgusting, objectifying pig. The wind blew and I smelled her perfume. She smelled so flowery and feminine. And she can't find the money in the car, so we go inside to look in her room one last time. She asks if she can just have the pill because she's a loyal customer. I told her I would, but I had to profit if I wanted to keep dealing. And I also asked her if she'd get a free Whopper every once in a while if she ate at Burger King daily, and she understood it was just business. Then she looked me right in the eyes and stuttered, I'll give you blank for 25 pills. I'm not going to say it, but basically she offers oral. I only had 60 and said no because I thought that would be a huge hit to my finances, but I realized if I just smoked less weed every day for a week, I could sell what I didn't smoke and get my money back. So I said yeah, and she instantly did it. It was amazing. We were smoking a cigarette afterwards, and I was gonna leave her house, but I was still attracted. So I told her she could have the rest of my pills if she had intimacy with me. She didn't hesitate at all. She led me upstairs and I did the deed. I lasted longer than I expected. Blah, 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 blah. It was, wow, he really gets into this. I'm not gonna read this. This is really gross. But let's continue. I did the deed and we smoked another cig. I told her before I left I'd give her double what I had just given her if she let me do that someday. I know many of you think it's disgusting, but really it's so awesome. She looked at me with disgust and said no. She told me she never would do that again, so we go our separate ways. I sold her about a month or two after, but she never tried to buy anything off of me again. At the time, I thought it was awesome, but looking back, I feel bad because A, she was addicted to pills and I was her only connect, and she still didn't want to buy from me because I think she was uncomfortable and thought she'd end up having intimacy again for more drugs. B, I realized that she had no attraction to me and probably didn't even like it, but at the time I felt really shitty about everything, and it felt really good to pretend that someone wanted to have intimacy with me. It's in the past and I don't dwell on it too much and I won't do it again, but I still feel bad about it, and it really felt good to get all of this off my chest. Ask me anything if you want. I'm comfortable answering most things about this. Sorry for the wall of text. I pissed off a local gang member and was so terrified of telling my family that I made up a lie that I got a job in New York City and had to leave as soon as possible. I was a really dumb kid, like ridiculously dumb. I grew up in Baltimore. I partied a lot, did drugs, sold drugs sometimes, but I wasn't the worst of the worst or even close to it really. We lived near gangs and heard shootings a lot, but I was always sort of on the periphery of that kind of stuff. Anyways, I was 19 years old at a party. I had no idea whose party it was, but it was a ton of fun. While drunk, me and my friend were upstairs and we found a big bag of pills, like one of those big Ziploc bags, filled all the way to the top, in the back of a mini fridge in one of the bedrooms. We drunkenly took the bag and put it in my friend's book bag. Then we left the party, laughing the entire way, talking about how we were going to split it and all of that. It was a white boy party in Pigtown. I didn't expect anyone to come after us. I woke up the next morning. My friend had the pills in his bag. I realized that it was an absolutely terrible decision, and right away regretted it. But I also realized there was no real way out of it. I just hoped nobody found out. Anyways, a few days later, my friend beat me like 7 times in a day. This was 1998. And I called him and he said that people were saying that people knew it was us who took the drugs. And that it was the property of some guy named Mickey who was coming to find us, who was apparently a gangbanger in West Baltimore. He said he heard it all over his high school, and his high school was way more gang infested than mine. So I knew what he was saying was true. He said he was going to New York the next day to go live with his cousin to lay low for a bit, and that I can come if I want. His mom didn't give a shit if he lived or died, so I didn't think she'd mind that he was leaving. My family though, both parents are educated and normal and everything. I couldn't just leave out of the blue. Hell, they got worried if it was out past midnight on some nights. So I told my friend, name is Jordan, my parents have met him once, to help me create a lie by using his cousin to call my house phone and call my name. Then tell me all about a job that he could hook me up with. It worked perfectly. He called my house phone, put on the best old white guy accent he could, and mentioned that I had asked about working with him in New York before and that a position opened up. I came home and my parents were thrilled, and they told me to talk to the guy right away and call him back. I called him back and he started yelling at me saying I better not be in his house for longer than a few days and that I owe him for that bullshit he pulled to get my parents on board with that. I still laugh thinking about that whole scenario. It felt like something out of a movie, but at the same time, I was so scared that I didn't even think about how ridiculous it all was. I just wanted it to work. My parents were suspicious at the idea that I had to leave the next day, but I told them that I had a friend who was there that I could stay with, and I wanted to set up in New York for a week before the job started regardless. This technically wasn't the first time I had left home. I spent a year in college before. The job was a low-level journalist job, which is what I told them. I told them I would call them every day. Then me and Jordan drove our ass to New York that night, freaking out but also kind of oddly happy that we actually got away with that. Guess what? Jordan brought the big bag of pills. I suppose I wouldn't know what to do with it regardless, but I was pissed at him. It was all sorts of narcotics, sort of separated in the bag by a weird sheet. I stayed with Jordan's cousin, and he was really aggressive and rude towards me when we first met. I was kind of terrified by him, but we eventually became closer friends. He was aggressive because he thought I was a gangbanger and wanted me out of his apartment ASAP, but he slowly found out I wasn't and warmed up to me. He also warmed up to us when he found out we had a bunch of drugs. It helped that he had a huge apartment with a spare bedroom. Anyways, I eventually found a job, got my own apartment with 2 roommates. Jordan went back to Baltimore after like 7 months and was apparently fine. And I kept up with the stupid, ridiculous lie that I was working as a journalist at NY1, a local news station. I provided no evidence or anything to support this. I tried to keep contact with my parents as minimal as possible. I eventually told them I got laid off, but that I had another job. My real job set up for me. It's funny because something like this would never work today. They would have Googled NY1 and realized there was no way my uneducated self could have gotten a job there. I didn't even know what it was, but it's a major news station in New York City. Anyways, that's basically the entire story. I love telling it, although for quite a few years I didn't tell anyone because I was still so scared of getting found out by Mikey or whoever drugs those were. I would visit my parents a few times a year, figuring I was fine. Nothing happened. No scary rumors or anything that someone was out to get me. In a way, I am glad it happened. I would end up becoming a lifelong New Yorker and would find a great career and my wife there. I thought I was only going to be there for a few weeks, maybe a few months. Nope, I would spend my life there basically. If you are going to call me a horrible person, yes, I agree. I was a dumb, stupid, reckless, bad teenager who did something not only dangerous but also really bad. Both stealing the drugs and lying to my parents and everything. And now let's get into some of the top comments. Someone says, "What happened to Jordan?" And the OP responds and says, "He went through some problems with addiction and then got clean eventually. Not sure when. We sort of dropped off when he moved back to Baltimore and I stayed in New York City. I talk to him occasionally, but not often. I have him on Facebook and I can't really gather much information from it except the 6 selfies he posted, but he seems to be doing all right, I guess, judging by them." I'm in my 30s and I got home from work a little late today. Made a drink and was just standing by the counter sipping on it when I had an abrupt realization that made everything about my life at this point make sense. I'm a junkie burnout. I'm probably also a functioning alcoholic. I've been thinking about it and it makes so much sense at this point. I look back to who I was before I started down the drug journey, and I was some bright-eyed, honor roll student who loved to learn. Reading, best thing ever. I had so many hobbies that I was passionate about. I was in clubs, I played sports, I had goals and ambitions. I was charismatic and popular. I volunteered because I cared. I was just a well-rounded guy. I started smoking weed because my friends looked like they were having like the best time of their lives. There was no peer pressure or anything like that. They just found everything hilarious and amazed. It looked fun. So I started smoking pot. After a while, grades started slipping. I didn't participate as much when I bothered to show up for my extracurricular stuff. Hobbies started slipping, but whatever. Then came the psychedelics. I was now an enlightened little shitling. Man, because life is so profound. Why is the most profound word in the entire Homo sapien vocabulary, man. Then the party drugs. K and pills, sometimes a lot of booger sugar, lots of cigarettes, pacing and talking, rolling and having intimacy, staring blankly at a wall, fun times. Then back to the psychedelics, much darker trips, scary stuff sometimes, faded to sobriety. Sobriety sucked and was mundane, but alcohol was now legal and the bar scene was kind of fun. Blow and drinks and sometimes late night hookups. Got older and didn't realize how unhappy I was seeing happy people. I faded away from the bar scene and started drinking alone and playing video games online with old friends who weren't amounting to shit either. They hated the families they formed and were looking for an escape to fantasy. I probably didn't like myself and wanted an out as well. All during these escapades, I worked really bad jobs. Low wage, no skill shit. Showed up, filled out an application, worked that same day usually, till I got bored and quit, then rinse and repeat. At some point, I earned some degree that managed to get me into an okay paying job where I'm secure, but I probably won't rise up. I haven't had intimacy in like 3 years, unless you count the occasional drunk hookups with the slut in receivables. Like Jesus, I'm looking at what I do now versus what I did when I was younger, and it's all bad, aside from the job. That is the one aspect that I'm doing better at, lol. I don't read at all anymore. I tried a few times and kept falling asleep. I don't draw, I don't paint, I don't carve, I don't play any instruments. Sports? I have a road bike. People think I ride it a lot because I'm lean-ish. I lift weights in between loading screens sometimes, and I probably don't eat enough because it fucks with my evening buzz. Jesus. I'm typing this out and I'm realizing just what a colossal loser I turned out to be. I'm even having some flashbacks to memories that I probably repressed, of classmates seeing me behind the register at some lackwit job and expressing disbelief that I'd be doing that. I remember making some offhand remark that it was just a temporary gig because my current project ended up flopping or some nonsense. The worst thing? That I'm just now realizing this. Like, how deluded have I been? I even stopped typing a little bit ago to look at my main account's comments, and they're all just cynical, sarcastic retorts and shit. Like, adds nothing to the conversation. Just shit. Sometimes upvoted, sometimes downvoted. I feel like I should call my mom or something, but I'm now suspecting that she's probably hated me for a long time. And now let's get into some of the top comments. Someone says, I just wanted to add something. You may have had an epiphany. Realized you're burned out and probably addicted to alcohol. But remember that even though those things may be completely true, they are not the totality of what you are. You are a human being with all the corresponding accoutrement. There's a reflection of the infinite universe inside you. You are so much more than a collection of problems you acquire in life. It's just that in order to actualize, you must first recognize, which you seem to have done, and then negotiate those obstacles.